my Shinjin Journey. I am a retired psychologist, age 73, living in the southeastern United States. In this essay, I share my spiritual awakening and how I view it through the lens of the Shin school within the Mahayana Buddhist tradition. At age 31, in a period of fearful anxiety and self-doubt, I unashamedly asked for help, quote, from above. I had no clear idea whom I was addressing, since I did not have an active religious belief system, and I had no real expectation of a response. But something dramatic happened. Suddenly, I felt a definite yet unexplainable sense of peace and calm and joy that permeated my consciousness for many months thereafter. I studied and looked inward to discover the basis for this wonderful gift I had received. In search of answers, I spent much time reading the Bible, the writings of Christian mystics, treatises on mystical experiences, and the perennial philosophy, the early Buddhist teachings, as well as great vehicle or Mahayana Buddhist scriptures such as the Heart Sutra, Diamond Sutra, Lankavatara Sutra, and especially the Threefold Lotus Sutra. I was clearly most attracted to the great vehicle teachings and practices due to their emphasis on the importance of transcending the limits of all dualistic systems based on words and concepts. Meanwhile, I adopted a daily meditation practice which involved focusing on my breathing and letting go of all other thoughts and sensations. I also made significant changes in my life to pursue altruistic activities that I construed as consistent with the Bodhisattva path, not realizing until later that this was impossible for me. After about 6 months, I felt confident enough to share my perspectives on Mahayana Buddhism with interested persons in my home community. By trying to teach, I learned much about myself and about the Buddha Dharma. Thankfully, one of my, quote, students was an elderly woman named Lucille, who helped me appreciate the devotional orientation within the Pure Land Buddhist tradition. In a sense, I was the student, and she was actually my, quote, good teacher. I subsequently reflected deeply on the Pure Land or Sukhavati Sutras and gained a profound appreciation for the implications of Dharmakara Bodhisattva's vows, Amida Buddha's great compassion, and the land of happiness in the West which he established. I thus came to the gate of the Nembutsu. However, I still didn't fully understand the fact that Amida had no requirements of me at all. So I merely shifted from exerting efforts toward the performance of good actions to focusing my efforts on worshiping Amida by means of long periods of reciting his name. What I discovered after 3 months of doing this was that even worship and repetition of the Nembutsu are not necessary for, quote, salvation. I was overjoyed to realize in my heart that Amida accepted me just as I was, with all my flaws and limitations. All I needed to do was to entrust myself to the power of his primal vow, the 18th of the 48 vows which Amida made as Bodhisattva Dharmakara. And even that faith, or Shinjin, was a gift of grace from him, and not of my own doing. At that point, I had a clear sense of absolute assurance that Amida's embrace extended to me. I was convinced that Dharmakara Bodhisattva anticipated and felt great compassion for my inability to fulfill the practices necessary to achieve enlightenment on my own. He therefore resolved that he would give up his own attainment of Buddhahood unless, when he became a Buddha, he could establish a land free of all suffering, where anyone, however evil, could be reborn. Then he backed up this great fundamental vow with the massive power of innumerable virtues and good deeds, which he performed over many eons of time. Dharmakara Bodhisattva successfully fulfilled his great vow and became Amida Buddha, my savior. In the larger Pure Land Sutra, Shakyamuni described in detail that wondrous place in the western part of the universe which Amida created, a world free from defilements and pain. Amida thus said to me, in effect, "Rely on the saving power of my embrace, John, rather than on your own contrived self-efforts. I guarantee you'll be reborn in my paradise when your earthly life ends. You will immediately at that time attain Buddhahood." Over the years since my spiritual awakening, I have been profoundly comforted by Amida's merciful promise, confident that I will reach the supreme perfect enlightenment of Buddhahood when this lifetime ends, due to his extraordinary efforts on my behalf, and I am exceedingly grateful. My natural response to this totally unearned gift is to joyfully and thankfully call out his name, Namu Amida Butsu, Namu Amida Butsu, Namu Amida Butsu. It has been challenging for me to be an isolated Shin Buddhist with no local Sangha. On the positive side, I feel extremely fortunate that I have active correspondence with Shin Buddhists in other parts of the country. I have also been active since retirement in uploading Buddhist-related content to a YouTube channel. These activities and connections have helped me to feel less isolated. To this day, I maintain an appreciation for the broader range of Buddhist teachings, particularly from the Mahayana tradition, notwithstanding my commitment to the Jodo Shinshu school. I know this non-exclusivity represents a divergence from Shin orthodoxy, but it is an orientation that seems to have evolved naturally in me. To my mind, it is a way of reflecting an appreciation for the paramount principle of skillful means or tactfulness as described in the Lotus Sutra, in that not all seekers will immediately be able to relate to an other power approach to the spiritual life. In essence, my framework of understanding begins with the premise that thinking is dualistic, which leads to the illusion of an ego or separate self. In contrast, reality is non-dual. That said, we need some way of thinking about this dilemma, since thinking is what we do as humans. As a Buddhist, I view the solution as involving an understanding that there is an ultimate Buddha body, or Dharmakaya, that is ineffable and inconceivable. But emanating from that suchness is a manifested spiritual level, cosmic Buddha, Amida, in relation to whom I am comforted by the Shin Buddhist narrative, which I deeply experience as accurately resonating with reality. If I were to speak words to you to express how I reconcile the paradoxical, literal versus symbolic interpretations of Jodo Shinshu teachings, they might go as follows. Please forgive the structure of the sentences. It is how I sometimes talk. Based on my understanding and experience, by simply saying Namo Amida Butsu, or even thinking it, in other words, by orienting myself toward cosmic Buddhahood in a way that recognizes my own inadequacy, and by having faith and entrustment that in spite of my inadequacy, there is an other power in the universe that is concerned with me, and cares about me, and wants me to be free of my suffering, and to thus be liberated, I can receive assurance in this life that I will be reborn in a land that is free of the many limitations that I have, which keep me from attaining Buddhahood, which keep me from being able to accomplish the Bodhisattva path. Limitations of this body and mind, limitations of these circumstances. So again, by orienting myself in that way and having that faith, I can receive the assurance in this life that I am accepted just as I am, and that I will be reborn in Amida Buddha's pure land of bliss. That is my conviction. That is my deep conviction and my deep source of comfort. Now, Do I believe this narrative in a concrete way, in terms of the idea that there, in a specific place in the universe, there is a godlike figure? No. But I do believe that such a conceptual system, that way of thinking, most closely describes a dynamic or a process that is real and true, keeping in mind that no conceptual system, no worldview, no way of thinking about reality is adequate to describe reality with a capital R. But given that I have to have some way of thinking, and that I am suffering in this world, and that I am inadequate to become perfect, and that I do reflect on and am concerned about what happens when I die, I think it is true that there is a mysterious force in the universe that accepts me just as I am, and that there is a profound ideal that can be attained when I die, at which point I can come back and more freely and more capably help those in need in various forms and ways that are inconceivable to me at present. I will close by echoing words from the opening lines of Venerable Master Shinran Shonen's Hymn of True Shinjin and the Nembutsu, quote, I take refuge in the Tathagata of immeasurable life. I entrust myself to the Buddha of inconceivable light.